She stood on a broken raft like a statue of grief, soaked, shaking, and guarding a puppy that wasn't hers. The sun was still high over the flooded valley near Glenwood Springs, Colorado. What used to be pine-covered hills now looked like a battlefield. Trees twisted into heaps, rooftops torn from cabins, toys and furniture half submerged in the rushing brown water. The last dam upstream had failed 2 nights ago, and the flood hadn't stopped eating the land since. I was steering our small rescue skiff through the widest channel, trying to reach the last visible debris patch before sunset. We weren't expecting to find anyone alive. Most of the rescues had ended yesterday. But then I saw her. A tan dog, ribs showing, fur matted with mud and rain, stood rigid in the center of a half-splintered wooden raft. She didn't move as we approached. Her eyes didn't blink. But I saw the tremor in her legs. And under her body, curled into her belly like a secret she refused to surrender, was a German Shepherd puppy, no more than 3 months old, pale fur soaked through. Alive. Barely. I slowed the motor. "Hold up," I whispered to the volunteer next to me. "That dog, she's protecting something." The wind picked up and the raft wobbled. She adjusted her stance instantly, spreading her legs for balance, but not stepping off the puppy for even a second. The puppy let out a whimper. "Mom and pup?" My partner guessed, but something wasn't right. The tan dog's teats looked dry. Her body sagged, yes, as if she'd nursed. But recently, I wasn't sure. And the puppy, its coloring, its build, it didn't match. I stood there in the boat, engine idle, staring at them like a man looking through time. She didn't bark, didn't growl, just stood there, soaked in silence, daring the river to try again. How long had they been drifting like this? The raft spun slightly, bumping a tree limb. She repositioned herself again, one paw slipping for a moment, but she recovered. The puppy didn't move, just pressed deeper under her chest. I raised my radio. "We've got a live adult dog and 1 German Shepherd puppy on a raft. East Channel, marker 7, drifting slow." As I looked at her eyes through my binoculars, something grabbed my throat. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pity. It was something older, something I didn't want to name. She was hollow, but she wasn't empty. She had nothing left, and yet she was still giving everything. And then I noticed something. Her fur was soaked from neck to tail, but her underside, where the puppy lay, dry. How was that possible? How many hours or days had she been standing like that? I gripped the edge of the boat as the raft started drifting again. We couldn't let her go. But why was her belly dry while her eyes were full? The current pulled harder as we moved alongside the raft, but it wasn't safe to get too close. One wrong wave and we'd flip her, or worse, separate them. I tossed a rope to the edge, praying it wouldn't spook her. "Easy, girl, please don't jump," I murmured under my breath. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Her eyes flicked toward the rope, then back to me, still guarding, still standing. The German Shepherd puppy stirred beneath her, whimpering once. She instinctively pressed her body lower, shielding it like armor. I scanned the area. The main channel veered left. Fast, brutal. If that raft slipped past us now, it would head straight for the debris pile near the old timber bridge. A death trap. "We've got maybe 2 minutes," I said to Eli, my partner. He started tying a rescue line to the nearest pine trunk on shore. I grabbed the hook pole and stepped forward in the boat, trying to reach the edge of the raft without jarring it. "Come on," I whispered. "Let me help you." She growled. It wasn't loud, but it stopped me cold. Not the growl of a stray. Not fear. It was deeper, maternal, primal. She didn't know me, but she knew what she was protecting. I looked closer. Scars lined her ribs, fresh but healing. And her teats, they'd clearly been used. Maybe days ago, maybe less. My gut twisted. "This isn't just survival," I muttered. "She's already lost her litter." But then, why this one? Why the German Shepherd puppy? The raft jerked suddenly, bumping a submerged log. The puppy squealed. The mother dog didn't budge, didn't even blink. She steadied the raft with her own body weight. Eli called out, "Tide's shifting. You've got 1 shot. 1 shot." Or they vanished downriver. I nodded once, breathed in hard, and leapt. The raft rocked violently as my boots hit the edge. I dropped to my knees, arms spread wide to balance. Water sloshed up my legs. The dog whirled on me, growling again, fangs exposed, and yet she didn't move off the puppy. I held up my hands. "I'm not here to take her," I said, voice shaking. "I'm here to take you both." The puppy stirred beneath her. The growl stopped. The dog stared at me. And then she stepped aside. I couldn't breathe. Not because of the cold or the raft or the weight of the wet clothes clinging to my skin, but because that one moment, that single movement from her, it shattered me. She didn't trust me. She didn't even know me. But she stepped aside. I reached down, hands trembling, and scooped the German Shepherd puppy into my arms. She was lighter than I expected, soaking wet, limp, but breathing. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, then closed again. The mother dog? I didn't know her name yet, so in my head I called her Greta, lowered her head slightly, watching every move I made. "I've got her," I whispered. Greta didn't move until I tucked the puppy inside my rescue vest. Then, as if some unspoken deal had been made, she followed me, inch by inch, across the raft. Behind us, the current slammed against the shore. "Eli!" I shouted. "Line tight, now!" The rope jerked. The raft began to spin. Greta lost her footing and slipped, in half her body dipping into the flood. I lunged, grabbing her by the scruff, pulling hard until she was back up on the boards. She didn't yelp, didn't resist, just looked up at me with those dark, endless eyes, and then turned her gaze back toward the puppy in my chest. We leapt into the boat seconds before the raft was yanked away and disappeared downstream like it had never been there. Eli was already steering us toward the landing zone, a mile upriver. Volunteers with blankets and med kits waved from the bank. As we pulled in, someone reached for the German Shepherd puppy, but Greta barked, sharp, protective, and low. "Let her be," I told them. "She's not leaving this one." The medic nodded and stepped back. I gently placed the puppy onto a wrapped towel under the emergency tent. Greta laid beside her instantly, curling her body protectively once again. Her eyes never left mine. Someone brought water. Greta didn't drink. She just stared, waiting. I crouched beside her, soaking in cold, but couldn't walk away. She was standing there for who knows how long, I murmured to the vet. No food, no cover, just guarding her. The vet frowned. "How old is the puppy, you think?" "Maybe 3 months," I said. "Then she's not hers." That stopped me. "What?" "She's nursing, but this pup's older. And look at the breed. That's a German Shepherd puppy. She's mixed at best." I turned back to Greta. She was licking the puppy's ears now, careful and slow. I looked down at the puddles forming at my knees, then up at the mountains where the storm had started, and whispered, "Wait, then whose baby is this?" The answer didn't come. Not then. Not in any logical way. But my chest ached like it knew. Back at the shelter in Glenwood Springs, the German Shepherd puppy was stabilized in a heated crate, swaddled in fleece, an IV hooked gently to her leg. The staff had started calling her Annika. No one knew where the name came from, but it stuck. Greta refused to leave her side. Every time someone tried to open the crate, she'd growl low and fierce. Not out of aggression, but out of something deeper, like her soul was fused to that little heartbeat. I stood watching them through the glass, arms crossed, rain still dripping from my sleeves. One of the vet techs approached and said, "You're Logan, right? The one who brought them in?" I nodded. She lowered her voice. "We're trying to keep them calm, but Greta's not like the others. She's different." Different wasn't even the word. She was haunted. Later that night, one of the volunteers found 2 dead puppies caught in flood debris just half a mile from where we'd found the raft. Same fur color as Greta, smaller, younger, drowned. The shelter tagged and logged them, but no one needed confirmation. Those were her babies. I sat in my truck for a long time after that, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to start the engine. Rain hit the windshield in a slow, steady rhythm. In my mind, I saw Greta again, standing there on that cracked wooden raft, water swirling around her legs, wind battering her ears, eyes fixed on the single puppy she'd chosen to save. A puppy that wasn't even her own. Why? Why had she done it? Why didn't she leave when her own were lost? Why not just give up? I stepped back inside the shelter just before midnight. Greta was curled around Annika, half asleep but still alert. When she saw me, she didn't growl this time. She blinked slowly, like she knew. I knelt beside the crate and whispered, "You had every reason to walk away, but you didn't." The air felt heavy. Not just from the storm, from everything I hadn't said aloud in a year. When my wife lost our baby, I shut down. I said all the right things at first. Then I stopped saying anything. I told myself silence was strength. But it wasn't. It was fear. And yet this dog, this stranger, this survivor, had stood in the middle of a flooded valley and chosen life. I exhaled hard. She had lost everything, and still she chose to save someone else. The next morning, I found Greta sitting exactly where I'd left her, inside the kennel, one paw gently resting over Annika's back. She hadn't eaten, barely moved, but her eyes never closed for long. She watched every breath that puppy took like her own life depended on it. When I slid the door open, she didn't growl. Not this time. She just looked up at me, then back down at the German Shepherd puppy, as if asking, "You're not taking her, are you?" "I'm not," I whispered. "Not unless you come too." Greta laid her head down, touching her nose to Annika's ear. It was such a deliberate gesture. Careful, reverent, protective. And it broke something inside me I didn't even realize was still there. The vet entered a few minutes later, clipboard in hand. She spoke softly. "Logan, I ran the estimates again. Greta's postpartum, maybe a week or less. But Annika, at least 3 months. Full German Shepherd puppy. The timeline doesn't match. And there's no physical connection. She's not the mother." I already knew, but hearing it out loud made it hit harder. "She treats her like her own," I said. The vet nodded. "She's grieving. She needed someone to hold on to." So did I. Later that day, a family showed up looking for a lost German Shepherd pup, but their puppy was male and already found. No one had come forward for Annika, and deep down I hoped no one would. I stayed late, cleaning crates and refolding towels just to avoid going home. Eventually, I made my way back to Greta and Annika's enclosure. Greta was asleep now, finally. But the puppy had scooted forward slightly, nose pressed to the wire like she was searching for something. I crouched down in front of her. "Hi there," I said softly. "You've got her wrapped around your little paw. You know that?" She blinked slowly, eyes still glassy but calmer than before. I rested my forehead against the bars. Maybe that's what love really is, choosing someone broken, even when you're broken too. I remembered the ultrasound photo my wife had framed. I never hung it. I couldn't. It sat in a drawer for months until I quietly threw it away one night, too ashamed to admit I'd given up. Greta didn't give up. She lost her entire world in that flood, and still she reached out to protect another. I sat there until the lights dimmed. I hadn't felt that kind of love in a long time. The shelter was quiet that night. Too quiet. You start to notice the smallest sounds when the noise fades. The soft wheeze of an air vent, the creak of a kennel door settling, the faint whimper of a dreaming pup. But something about that silence felt off. When I came in the next morning, I noticed it right away. Annika wasn't wagging her tail or shifting in her sleep like usual. She was curled too tightly, breathing shallow. Greta was licking her head with rapid, nervous strokes, pacing 2 steps, then returning, as if trying to will her back to health. The vet was already by the exam table when I flagged her down. "Something's wrong," I said. "The German Shepherd puppy, she's not herself." It didn't take long to confirm. "Fever, fast heartbeat, her gums are pale," the vet said, checking vitals. "She's fighting an infection." Greta barked sharply when they lifted the puppy from her crate. It wasn't loud, but it was urgent. The kind of bark you only make when you feel something slipping away. Annika let out a soft yelp as the needle found her vein. She didn't fight. That scared me more than anything. Greta refused to sit down. Even when we tried to guide her gently away, she strained against the leash, claws scratching the linoleum, eyes fixed on the metal table, like she could somehow pull the pain from Annika's tiny body into her own. "She won't stop watching her," the vet tech whispered. "She can't," I said. "She's already lost too much." I felt it again, that familiar rising panic. The same kind I had the night we lost the baby. You tell yourself it's early. You tell yourself these things happen. But none of it makes sense when the crib is already set up and the baby clothes are folded and your wife is crying into the same pillow night after night. I had stood at the doorway then, helpless. Now I stood at another doorway, this one steel and cold and smelling of antiseptic, watching a German Shepherd puppy fight to stay alive, and a dog who'd lost everything refused to leave her side. Greta laid down eventually, but only when they placed Annika on a heating pad near the recovery cage and let her get close enough to touch her nose to the pup's fur. She didn't sleep. She just lay there, watching. I sat beside them on the floor. "I didn't get a second chance," I whispered. "You should." Outside, the storm clouds were finally breaking. A sliver of sunlight spilled through the shelter windows, landing right across Annika's crate like a promise not yet broken. I promised myself I wouldn't get attached. I lied. By midnight, the shelter was lit only by the dull green glow of monitors and the occasional flicker of emergency lights above the ICU wing. I hadn't left. Neither had Greta. Annika's fever spiked to 104. The vet said the infection was deep, likely from contaminated floodwater or exposure. They'd started a second round of antibiotics and fluid therapy, but no one wanted to say what we were all thinking. Touch and go. Greta hadn't eaten in over a day. Every time someone brought a bowl of food, she sniffed it, then looked back at the German Shepherd puppy, like the thought of nourishing herself was absurd, while Annika hovered so close to the edge. "Greta, please," I said softly, crouching by her side. "You can't help her if you go down, too." She rested her chin on her front paws and stared through the glass. Around 2 a.m, she began to whine, low and slow, as if singing to the shadows. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, arms wrapped around my knees, listening to her grief echo in that dim, sterile room. The shelter was silent, but for her. The kind of silence I'd lived with too long. I pulled out my phone and opened the last unsent message to my wife. It had sat in my drafts for 10 months, a hollow apology I could never bring myself to send. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. "I saw a dog today," I finally typed. "She lost her babies and still found the strength to love someone else's. I think I'm learning how to breathe again." I didn't send it, just saved it. But even that was more than I'd done in months. Greta suddenly stood, ears up, pacing 3 tight circles before settling again near the crate. Annika stirred. A twitch, a paw moving. Then stillness. I froze. The monitor beeped, slower. I could hear the vet's footsteps rushing from the back, but everything around me started to blur, the walls pulling away, the lights flickering too bright. I wanted to scream, to run, to pull her out and make it stop. Greta pressed her nose against the crate bars and gave a soft, desperate bark. Nothing. A long minute passed, and then a sound, so soft I almost thought I imagined it, a whimper, barely audible, but it was there. I jumped up, heart racing, peering through the glass. Annika's tiny body shifted, her chest rising just a little stronger now, her head tilting toward the warmth of Greta's breath. Greta licked the air between them and then collapsed into a quiet heap, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. She was still here. They both were. I leaned my head against the doorframe, whispering into the quiet, "If she lives, I'll take them both home. I swear it." By the time the sun rose, I was still on the floor. My back ached, my legs were numb, but I didn't move. Greta was curled around Annika's crate like a living barricade, her eyes red from exhaustion, ears twitching with every beep of the monitor. The vet stepped in with a clipboard, her face unreadable. "She made it through the night," she said quietly, "but the fever's still climbing. We're adding a broad-spectrum antibiotic. It's the last tool we've got." Greta let out a low sound. Not a growl, not a whine, just pain folded into breath. The vet looked at her, then back at me. "She still hasn't eaten?" I shook my head. "I'll bring something stronger, for both of them." But nothing stronger could fix what I saw in Greta's eyes. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was memory, loss, hope clinging by a thread. That's when the howling started. It wasn't loud and it wasn't long, but it split straight through me. Greta sat back on her haunches and tilted her head to the ceiling. Just one single, aching cry. Deep, guttural, ancient. It was the sound of a mother calling to something she couldn't reach. The other dogs in the shelter fell silent. The vet had tears in her eyes as she set down the food tray. I couldn't take it. I opened the crate door and slid inside, crouching next to Greta, laying my hand on her back. "I know," I said. "I know." She leaned into me, shaking, her ribs moving too fast. I could hear Annika's breathing, irregular, shallow. "She's strong," I whispered, more to myself than to anyone else. "She's a German Shepherd puppy. She's got a fighter's blood." I wanted to believe it, needed to, because if Annika didn't make it, I didn't know what would happen to Greta, or to me. Greta stood suddenly and walked to the food bowl, sniffed, then finally took one bite. Just one, and then another. The vet, watching from the doorway, let out a quiet breath. "She's not giving up," she said. Neither was I. I reached for my phone again, opened that same unsent message to my wife. This time my fingers moved on their own. "She's eating now. Just barely. The puppy's not out of the woods, but I think they're holding each other together." I hit send. Greta returned to Annika's side, licking her forehead softly. And for the first time in days, I let myself believe we might see the sunrise with both of them still breathing. The sunrise came quiet and golden, sliding through the shelter's east windows like a soft promise. It painted the floor in warm streaks and brushed over the metal crate where the German Shepherd puppy lay still as stone. I held my breath. Annika hadn't moved since just after midnight. Her chest rose, barely. Greta had kept her vigil all night, unmoving now, eyes half-lidded but alert. She hadn't made a sound in hours. That scared me more than the howling. The vet tiptoed in with a fresh IV bag. She didn't speak, just looked at me, then at the puppy, and then at Greta, and nodded. We both knew what this kind of silence could mean. I crouched down, heart thudding. "Hey, baby," I whispered, voice cracking. "It's morning. You made it. Just open those eyes. Just once." No response. Greta leaned in, nuzzling the puppy's shoulder. She licked gently over and over again, then nudged Annika's head with her nose. Still nothing. I couldn't take it. I covered my face with both hands and sat back on my heels, biting down hard to keep my breath in. It felt like I was back in that hospital room a year ago, holding a tiny pink hat that was never worn. Please, not again. Greta started to whine, short, broken sounds that built into a low moan. She circled the crate, then came back, laid both front paws beside the puppy, and licked her face, faster now, more desperate. "She knows," I said to the vet. "She knows something's wrong." A twitch, tiny, but real. Annika's paw moved, just a few centimeters. Greta froze, we both did. Another twitch. This time her head rolled slightly. A soft sound escaped her throat, more like a sigh than a whimper. I leapt to the side of the crate, dropping to my knees, hands trembling. "She's breathing." Greta let out a low bark, a single exhale of disbelief and joy. She pressed her nose to the puppy's side and nudged her gently until Annika stirred again. Her eyes fluttered open, just for a second, but I saw them. Pale brown, tired, but alive. The vet gasped and ran for the stethoscope. I stayed right where I was, staring, unable to move. Greta laid down flat, front legs stretched forward, her body curled protectively around the puppy like a perfect half moon. She didn't look at me, didn't need to. She'd known long before I did. The puppy had chosen to stay. Tears hit the floor before I realized they were mine. I knelt there, hands clenched into fists, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break out. Annika blinked again, slower this time, longer. She shifted her little paws and let out a weak, rasping whimper. Greta licked her ear as if trying to clean away all the pain. The vet placed the stethoscope against the puppy's side, holding her breath. Then she nodded. Her heart rate steadier. Fever's dropping. I exhaled all at once and nearly collapsed against the wall. Greta looked up at me then, just a second, just a flick of those tired eyes, and I swear I saw something like relief pass through her, like a dam cracking from the inside out, like she had carried the flood alone long enough, and someone else finally reached in to hold part of it. I reached through the crate bars, laid my hand gently on her head. "You did it," I whispered. "You brought her back." I hadn't touched another soul like this in months. Annika's breathing deepened. Her tiny body stopped shaking. She curled her back legs in, tucking herself tighter against Greta's side. The way a child finds their mother, even if they never knew her scent. Later that afternoon, I went home, not because I wanted to, but because I had to tell someone what I'd just witnessed. My wife was still there. We weren't divorced, not legally, just strangers in the same house, divided by silence and scar tissue. She opened the door, saw my face, and her expression shifted. For the first time in so long, she didn't look away. We sat together on the couch, not touching, not speaking, for a long time. Then I said it. "There was this dog," I started. "She lost her babies in the flood, but she found a puppy, one that wasn't hers. She protected her, fed her, kept her alive." My wife's lips parted, her eyes already wet. I looked down at my hands. She taught me something I thought I'd forgotten. "What's that?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard. What being a father really means. She didn't respond, just reached out, and this time I didn't pull away. The next day I signed the adoption forms, both of them. Greta and Annika, together, always. The shelter asked what I wanted to name the puppy. I looked at her sleeping on a warm blanket with Greta's paw protectively over her back. "Annika," I said. Her name's already written. Greta lifted her head slightly, ears flicking, like she'd been listening all along. And for the first time since that flood rolled down the mountain, I felt the water inside me start to recede. It's been 3 weeks since the flood. Most of the debris has been cleared from the riverbanks near Glenwood Springs. The shelters are quieter now. The news cameras are gone. But in our little house at the end of the gravel road, the healing is still happening. Slow, quiet, and sacred. Annika has grown stronger every day. She's still small for a German Shepherd puppy, but her energy is back. She chases dust motes in the sunlight, barks at the dryer, and flops across the couch like she owns the place. Greta watches her constantly. She never hovers the way she used to, but she's never far either. If Annika cries in the night, Greta is there before I can even swing my legs off the bed. If the pup trips and yelps, Greta's nose is instantly on her shoulder, checking, reassuring, anchoring. I've seen a lot of dogs in my life. Brave ones, smart ones, loyal ones, but never one like Greta. She doesn't need to protect this puppy anymore. She chooses to, and I understand that now more than I ever thought I would. We started taking walks again, my wife and I, at first in silence, then with words, then with laughter. Greta trots beside us, Annika bouncing at her heels like a shadow that just learned how to dance. They've both become quiet fixtures in our lives, the kind of fixtures you don't realize you needed until they're already inside your chest, rearranging the furniture of your heart. Last night, we all sat together on the porch. The air was soft and full of crickets. My wife had her hand on my knee. Annika slept at our feet. Greta lay by the door, head up, eyes scanning the yard like she was still watching over something we couldn't quite see. "Why do you think she did it?" my wife asked softly. "Protected a puppy that wasn't hers?" I stared out at the dark trees for a long time. "Because love doesn't always need a reason," I said. "Sometimes it just knows where to go." Greta let out a breath and closed her eyes. Annika stirred, rolled over, and pressed her head against her guardian's chest. She saved what she couldn't have and gave it everything she had. This little girl's journey from abandonment to survival shows how powerful compassion really is. Greta had no blood ties to Annika, no obligation, nothing to gain. But in the middle of a flood, after losing her own, she found a reason to stand. She found someone to protect. She chose love, and that choice saved 2 lives. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility, it's pet care. It's showing up every day, even when it hurts, even when you're tired, even when you've lost everything. Sometimes healing doesn't come from medicine. It comes from presence, from choosing to stay when you could have walked away. Greta taught me that. Annika reminded me how to feel it. And now every time I watch them sleep side by side, one head black and tan, the other golden and still scarred, I remember that even in the darkest moments, there's someone waiting to be saved, and someone willing to save. Share this story. Every time you do, you help us reach the next Greta, the next Annika, the next quiet miracle hidden in the floodwaters. Join our Brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.